And I can't, in many ways, can't get this novel out of my head. Let's talk about it without any tearing, because as some of you know, she begins a new book always on January 8th because of the success going back to 1982 of House of the Spirits, which began on that day, and she's kept this tradition with all the books she's written. Take us to January 8th with this new novel of yours. Were you thinking about the Spanish Civil War? Were you thinking about the characters? What actually goes into the beginning?
I was thinking about the story, because the story stands by itself. I had heard the story of 2,200 Spanish refugees from the Civil War in Spain that came to Chile because the poet Pablo Neruda chartered a ship, a cargo ship, conditioned it to transport them, selected the people, and sent them to Chile, where they were very well received. And they changed the country. They changed our culture. They enriched the country immensely. So I had heard the story of the Winnipeg many times, but the need to write it, I think, came because the theme of refugees is in the air, and we hear about it all the time. Also, I have been a refugee and an immigrant, so I know what it is to be always a foreigner and to be looking for a safe home. I can understand the situation very well.
2,200 on the SS Winnipeg, which Pablo Neruda essentially allowed and enabled to go to Chile and take people who were, unlike many of the ones you write about, who are migrants and who find their way to France, but are in camps, concentration camps, really.
Because when Franco, the armies of Franco surrounded Barcelona, which was the last bastion of the Republicanos in the Civil War, 500,000 people walked to the border with France. It was the coldest winter ever. It was January, and people just walked to the border. And can you imagine the people at the authorities found themselves with 500,000 refugees in 24 hours. They didn't know what to do with them. So first they closed the border.
Many over the Pyrenees, yeah.
Well, many crossed the Pyrenees, but others went to the checking points of the border. And so eventually they opened the border and let them in, and they put them in the beaches. Mm-hmm. And they surrounded the beaches with barbed wire. There was no shelter of any kind. There was no water, drinking water, no latrines, no medical assistant, nothing, and very little food. Trucks would pass by and throw loaves of bread, and the men would grab it, and the women and the children would be the last ones. Many, many people died, mostly the children died. So the situation was so dire that Pablo Neruda, who had many friends in Spain and had written a beautiful poem called Spain in the Heart, España en el Corazón, he convinced the president of Chile to receive these migrants. The public opinion was divided in Chile because everybody in Chile, most people in Chile, loved the Republicanos, the Republicano side of the left side of the war. They were against the fascists. But the right wing and the Catholic Church didn't want them. So the rhetoric, the narrative in 1939 in Chile against the immigrants is the same that we hear today here.